Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into the first episode of my new channel, Cooking for College, where I try to make dishes that are easy for college students to make. But since the semester's over and I'm home and have a good amount of resources, I'm going to explore some more interesting dishes that I wouldn't be able to try at school. And today's dish is called eggs in Purgatory, which is an Italian dish. It traditionally was served as a dinner, but now it's become a breakfast. But for today, I'm going to put my own little spin on it. It's going to be a dinner item, and we're going to add some red chili powder and just a little bit of bacon to add some more flavor to it. The prep work for this dish that you're going to need to do is chop 1 small onion, mince or press 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, rinse and wash 20 ounces of tomatoes, chop around 3 strips of bacon, and crack about 5 to 6 eggs into a Pyrex measuring cup or another liquid measuring cup of that nature. So the first thing you're going to need to do is brown up your bacon in a nice deep dish or a Dutch oven. I'm going to be using a Dutch oven today just because it has a lid you can cover the top with. And you're going to turn it on to a medium-high heat. And you're going to first put in your bacon. And now the goal of this is, in traditional eggs in Purgatory, oil is used to help cook everything, but we want to render some of the fat out of this bacon and use that to give some nice flavor to our dish. So right now it's really sizzling away here in the pan. They're starting to get some browning at the bottom of the pan, and that's going to taste really nice when those onions go in there. And now that it's nice and brown, you're going to scoop it out and put it in a little bowl on the side. There's probably about a tablespoon of bacon fat in here, so we're going to add another 3 tablespoons of olive oil in here to get a nice base to cook those onions in. Add your onion to the dish. I personally am not the biggest onion fan, so I'm not adding as much as maybe you would at home. I only use about half the onion. As your onion's cooking, keep an eye on it, because when it starts to brown up, that's when you're going to want to add your garlic in at the last minute, because garlic browns much quicker than onion does. The onion's finally starting to brown up and get nice and caramelized, so we're going to add the garlic. Now, you're going to add all of your tomatoes into the pan, right over all of the stuff that's cooking, making sure the garlic hasn't burned. Now at this point I have turned it down to low, and you're going to start to see the tomato skins pop. And after they have popped, that's when we're going to start adding our seasoning, because the juices from the inside of the tomatoes will come out. Now I just put the lid on for a few seconds to let the tomato skins pop, and I realized it's really dark and hot in there, fitting since the name is Eggs in Purgatory. Once the skins start to pop, you can give them a nice little poke to really help get some of the juices out there. So I got a little distracted and excited when the onions and the garlic started to brown and I put the tomatoes in too fast. You're supposed to let the chili flakes bloom inside of that oil. I'm going to be putting about a teaspoon in now, even though it's supposed to be put in earlier. Now while this is still cooking, I'm going to add in a little bit of red chili powder. Now a little goes a long way, so do this to your own personal taste, but for me, I'm going to be putting in about a 1/4 teaspoon of red chili powder. And just add that right in. Okay, now for some additional seasonings, I'm going to be adding some parsley and oregano, so add those into your sauce too while it's bubbling. Also remember to salt and pepper to taste. Now that the sauce is nice and juiced out, we're going to add the eggs. And now this technique of putting it in the Pyrex container I saw from Carla on Bon Appetit Test Kitchen, and it really seemed to help her get just the eggs in the nice little places they had to be without the risk of getting the eggshells in because they're already pre-cracked. So now you're going to go into your sauce and you're going to pick some spots kind of around the edge of the pan, and you're going to put in your eggs. I poorly planned this section and should have had an audio for this part, but instead I am now making a voiceover explaining that I take the spoon, scrape a little hole, and try to pour the egg into it so that when the egg cooks it will hold its shape. As you can see, the sauce kind of just comes right back into where I scraped, but Carla did it on Bon Appetit Test Kitchen and I'm doing it, and I do think it helps move some of the tomato solids out of the way. Once you've got all the eggs in there, put your lid on and let it sit for a few minutes so all the eggs will cook. In the meantime, you could cook some toast because it will pair nicely with this dish, and just be sure to check on it so it doesn't overcook. Now when you check on your eggs, the white should be completely cooked, but the yolk's still a little bit runny. That means they're done. So now what you're going to do is you're going to get your plate, scoop out your egg, get it onto the plate, Get a little bit of that tomato sauce. And you're gonna finish it off with some salt, toast, bacon, and basil. You're gonna come in with some of that toast, grab a little bit of sea salt, sprinkle it on top of the egg. Come in with some of that bacon we had from earlier, and top it off with a little bit of freshly torn basil. So this was the recipe for eggs in purgatory. It looks like a great meal. I'm gonna sit down and have this right after I finish filming, but tune in next time when we're gonna be cooking bananas Foster, which involves a little bit of fire. So, see you then.